The muzzle is off. Let go of the shame, remove all the pain, block it out like a troll on your timeline. The past is what made you who you are today. Embrace it, let it go like an exhale. Remove it, remove it, remove it. The muzzle is off.
Well, good evening. It has been quite some time before I have actually done a podcast show, and welcome to the Muzzle podcast, where I am your host, Nikiya Mone. I realize it's been quite a while, and sometimes what we have to do is we have to take a step back in life and rethink some things, reorganize some things, regroup, recalibrate yourself, get yourself back to a place where, you once were functioning. And I needed to do that for myself. And originally I was honestly supposed to come back on, I want to say like a month or two ago, to be honest. And when I went to do a show, I couldn't do it. And I was like, nope, not going to do it. I'm not going to force myself into doing anything. And a lot of people had began to ask me, like, when are you doing a show? And I didn't have an answer, right? I kept saying, oh, I am. And those I ams lasted for quite some time. And part of the reason for that is that when you literally are just tapped out, you ran dry, it's kind of like you have to take a step back, right? And what I found was that I was doing, and there was no type of refreshing for myself, right? About a year ago, I realized that I was falling into a slump. So I said to myself, I was like, you know what? Nope. To get out this slump, because I was spending a lot of time at home, and I wasn't really going out, outside of maybe like a couple times with friends or whatever, but I wasn't going out. Like I wasn't literally like enjoying life or whatever the case may be. So I said, you know what? In order for me to do this, I'm going to do this in another way. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go get another job. That job is going to allow me to get out the house. So a lot of y'all see I post about bartending, and it's so crazy because the truth of the matter is, when I first started, I sucked as a bartender. Let me tell y'all. As much as I love making drinks, being a bartender is totally different from like making drinks at home for your friends. Your friends are always going to be like, oh, this is great, blah, blah, blah. And they don't care how long it takes for you to make a drink. It is totally different when you're in the realm of a bar. And it's totally different when you have to move at a certain speed. And it's definitely different when you're mixing drinks and everything like that. And it's like, at home, you can mix a drink, you taste it, and it don't taste right, pour it out. When you're in a bar, that counts as money, right? So it's totally different. It's a totally different ball game. It's a totally different climate. And I totally sucked in the beginning. And the difference between me and I guess other people, like, you can tell me I suck at something and I'm going to be like, what? No, I don't. Right. I might really think in my head, I probably do, but like, you're never going to get that confirmation out of me for me to agree with what you're saying. So I literally said, well, you know what, in order for me to get better, I'm going to have to go to bartending school because I'm going to need to better myself in this way. Right. And that's exactly what I did. I didn't say nothing. I didn't say anything, to the owner. I didn't say anything. I just went and I did it. And once I did it and I passed, all I did was send him the picture of, I am now certified bartender, which then helped me to gain a necessary skill that I wasn't actually that good at. Number one, speed. They literally show you how to increase your speed when you're making drinks. One of my issues with that, and there's a reason why I'm giving you this back history, so just flow with the story real quick, is because most of you guys are aware that in 2018, the ex put my head through a car window, right? So because of that, I suffer from a long-term effect from the concussion that I had, which is memory. I suffer memory loss, especially short-term. You could tell me something, and 5 seconds later, 5 minutes later, I literally might come back to you and ask you, what did you tell me? What did you ask me? Whatever the case may be. And the reason, there's a reason behind that, and it's because of that concussion that I had. It's a long-term effect from the severity of that concussion. I don't think people recognize that the concussion I had was severe. And part of the reason I think a lot of people didn't realize that the concussion that I had was severe is because I literally just kept moving. No one knew the headaches I was experiencing. No one knew like the short-term memory loss that I was experiencing. No one fully understood the severity of it because I never necessarily spoke of the severity of it. But I still suffer from that to today. But what helped me was when I went to the doctor and I explained to him everything that was happening in this last year, he said something to me. He said, you have to focus. He said, even right now, you're not focused on me. He was like, you're literally sending messages and you're doing this and you're talking to me at the same time. I said, well, I have to multitask because right now I literally was responding to something from my job while in the doctor's office, right? And I'm like, I have to multitask. I do this. Like, I am the one who multitasks on everything. And he said, you don't have the ability to do that right now. And I was like, what? He said, because of what's happening with your memory, you have to focus. And if you don't focus in, you're always going to forget, right? Then he also said, and what you also might need to do is whatever someone just told you, whatever they asked you, until it's complete, repeat what they said in your mind. And I literally began to take that in all aspects, in all realms of life, in order to help me to focus better on what it was that I was being asked to do, what it was that I needed to do, and everything. Like, I literally have 1,001 different notebooks all around that I write stuff down in order to help me to always remember what it is that I need to do, what I'm supposed to do. And granted, it doesn't always work because sometimes I forget. In my mind, I think I'll remember and then I won't. But it's gotten so much better now than where I was a year ago as far as trying to remember things. I still get brain fog because you might have did something to me last week and I forgot about it, but then I remember this week and I got to re-bring it back up because I didn't do it last week because I just remembered that that's what something that you did or said or whatever the case may be. I'm trying to get better at that because I'm trying to focus, and as soon as something happens, hit it so that I don't have this brain fog, right? So let's move this shit forward. So I'm going to say probably in these last 3 years, with fully being able to understand and dig deep within self, it has been a struggle, right? Part of that struggle is because let's hypothetically say 2020 is a wash, right? So if we say 2020 is a wash, and 2020 is a wash because we were all kind of like definitely isolated as far as people were concerned, as far as connecting and everything like that. Like literally 2020, I only connected with certain people. Because at that time I was like, ain't none of y'all give me COVID. I don't give a damn what y'all say. Okay. I don't care where you say you at, where you say you not at. What you ain't going to do is bring COVID up in these doors. Right. So it was kind of like, it was like my doors were literally just reserved for family and extremely close friends. And family was literally just my sister and my nephew. And close friends was just like, you were super close to me if you got into my house, okay, for 2020. And that literally was probably like maybe one or two people, if that, to be honest. So it was literally 2020 was the year that I had to deal with everything that was going on in my brain, because 2018 and 2019, I didn't deal with it. I just moved forward. So 2020, when the world shut down and all we had time to do was just deal, I literally had to just sit and deal within self. And that was probably one of the most difficult times of my life, because there was no one to really connect with in order to at least release the emotion of the feelings, right? Let me not say there was no one. They were there. It's like there was, but it was in a very limited capacity, right? A lot of people, like, especially like around Mother's Day, everybody, especially in 2020, were calling just to see how I was, to see how I was getting along. Because again, 2018, 2019, we was able to be outside. 2020 Mother's Day, we were stuck inside, right? So it was like 2018, 2019, it was easy for me to be distracted around Mother's Day. But 2020, there was no distraction. I literally had to sit within self and deal with the fact that I miscarried, and missing out on a Mother's Day celebration that I would have had I not miscarried, right? And what I realized was that what began to happen was through these years, and especially, within these last years of me being single, it has been very difficult to connect with the male species of the world, because it's very hard for people to understand that at my age, why I don't have children. And then on top of having to explain that, it then turns into a conversation that becomes rather uncomfortable, that I have had to have multiple times now, explaining why I don't have any children. And then getting asked one of the most insensitive questions that I feel that you can ask a woman whom just said that she miscarried, which is, I mean, you still want a child? And it's like, I don't think that some people realize how insensitive that is to ask of a person. I don't realize people understand how that literally can be taken as being extremely cruel. As a woman who miscarried, and as a woman who literally went misdiagnosed for over 10 years of my life as it pertains to fertility is concerned, I literally was told by multiple OBGYNs I was just infertile and would never have children. No one ever took the time to discover the why. The only thing they gave me was the outcome and said what I will never be. So it was always, for a very long time, I will just never have children. I'll never be a mother. I did not discover that wasn't the case until late, when I finally asked the questions. And one of my high school friends, Lisa, I asked her, I said, what doctor did you go to? And at this time I had moved back to New Jersey from Georgia. And I wanted to understand, like, why these people keep telling me I just won't? Like, it doesn't make sense. They're not giving me a real valid reason. I was pregnant before at the age of 18. I had an abortion at the age of 18. So You can't just tell me like at one point in time in life, I could conceive. And then all of a sudden now it's like, oh no, you'll never be, that doesn't make sense. And it wasn't added up properly until I went to the doctor, the OBGYN that I went to, and he was like, you just have fibroids. So something that could have been remedied in my 20s, potentially even early 30s, did not get remedied until my late 30s, all because these doctors didn't want to do their job. So now I enter into this good world of dating and am faced with some of the most insensitive remarks that a woman that experienced a miscarriage could ever be told or asked. I'll never forget, one guy told me that I would be selfish to think that it would even be possible for me to have a child, especially at that age. And I want to say this was 2019 when that man said that to me. So I was like late 30s. And I'm like, so I'd be selfish if I wanted to be a mother. Forget anything else. I'm selfish for having the desire to be a mother. And to continuously have that played over and over and over, and not just by one man, by multiple people telling me how great my life has to be because women, some of y'all included too, how great my life has to be because I don't have children, how I'm not tied down, I can just pick up and go. To think that my mind would work in such a selfish manner is ludicrous to me, because I don't consider having a child as a burden. I consider having a child as a blessing, and then me working within that blessing to make everything else fit. And I feel that if I had a partner that understood my life, i.e., career, if I do have to go travel for my job, whatever the case may be, if I had a partner that understood that and was on the same team with me, then therefore this wouldn't be such a burdensome task of having a child. But it appears that the consensus of some of the men that have, come into my path, it's such a burdensome thing. And why would you want to do that? You still want to have a child after you miscarried? The last person that said that to me, I said, and why the would I not? Are you a father? Yes, I have this many. So if you weren't a father and you had the desire to be a father, would you really want someone to ask you that? And I don't think that people fully understand how much of a trigger those words can be, because it is a deep trigger. Because I can remember from the time when I was young, I always said I wanted children. So for someone to sit up here and basically attempt to tell me that my desire is selfish, or that my desire, why would you even want to have children? Granted, there are those of us women that absolutely do not want any children. And I don't knock you for your lack of desire to become a mother. Your probably best bet is to not become one because you absolutely don't want to have one. However, for a person such as myself that has always had the desire, one of the worst things you can ever tell me is I should not desire that. I should not desire motherhood. I should not desire children. I should not desire lineage. And that's what I had to say to someone. I said, so you're telling me that my lineage just needs to stop with me, that it shouldn't continue on? And I don't think that we fully realize like how much of a turnoff that is. And then on top of that, when you're dealing with someone that already had to go through a traumatic experience of, number one, not being thoroughly tested to figure out what the heck was going on at a young age. Number two, to then finally take the steps and do the things that was needed to be done in order to conceive, to finally conceive, and then to miscarry, and then be told that they are selfish, and then be told that you shouldn't have that desire, and then be told that look at how beautiful your life is. I don't feel that my life is beautiful. I feel as if my life is missing out on something great, something wonderful, something magnificent as being a parent. And I realize that some people do not have that desire, but when you tell someone that they shouldn't desire the same thing, you do not realize the injury that you're causing that person. So I've had to take a break, because it was either one of two things was going to happen. I was going to literally cuss everybody out, or the flip side of it is you guys wouldn't see me because my life would be over. See, and these are the things that we don't like to discuss, because we don't like to discuss how the things that we do and say can affect a person. We don't like to discuss the fact that some of the most insensitive that we say can literally cause a person, or can be a trigger to a person to end their life. We don't want to discuss that. We don't want to even think along those realms that the things in which we say or the things in which we do could literally be the catalyst for a person to end their life. No, we don't want to take on that level of onus. And you want to know why we don't want to take on that level of onus? Because we are stuck inside of a society that says that was your decision. But we're not stuck inside of a society that understands emotional triggers. And then we tell people, and I have been guilty of this, and I am learning not to do this now, that you are responsible for your own personal triggers. Another person is not responsible for what triggers you. However, that person is responsible for the commentary and for how they treat and or receive a person. So therefore, technically, if you say something that is insensitive, if you say something that is demeaning, if you say something that literally is a trigger for a person, you are responsible for what comes out of your mouth. And if you don't understand that as an individual, and if you don't understand that as a person, that you are responsible for the you spew out of your mouth, you cannot tell me that you're not then in fact also responsible for the trigger that it has occurred within me. Because I personally would not have been triggered had you not said what the you said. And I have literally been having to deal for the past probably 2 years, emotional triggers. And I am tired of dealing with all of the emotional triggers and then taking on the ownership of my triggers and basically saying it's not you, it's me. I now have to deal with why this is triggering me and all. And while I sit through and deal with every single last trigger, I am then re-triggered again by some bullshit because a person does not understand their responsibility on how you care, treat, and love another person. I don't know if we will ever get to a place where each and every individual has the emotional intelligence to understand that you are responsible for the that comes out of your mouth. You are responsible for the actions that you do to another. But we are forever attempting to absolve a person of their responsibility. And that is why you have a lot of people that suffer in silence, but they look like me and are considered a high-functioning, depressed person. And this is not just like in the personal life, relationally, this is also professionally. There are a lot of things that go on inside of these corporations and in these organizations that I am sorry that sometimes HR needs to do a better job at vetting people. and beginning to understand corporate culture and corporate structure. Because at times, even when you're on the job, you can be triggered to the point where you literally lose your zeal for what you were doing. I will never forget when that happened to me. I was working within an organization that did not understand emotionally where I was. And nor did anyone take the time to ask, are you okay? One of the things that I have learned to do, especially once I entered upon senior leadership, is when I meet with my team, I ask my team, how are you? How was your weekend? How are you feeling? And one of the reasons why I ask that is because it is important to understand that there can be outside factors that go on in a person's life that can affect their productivity. And if you're not sensitive to that fact, and if you're not keen to the fact that this could be happening, then you begin to see that a person's productivity goes from up here to all the way down here. And you're trying to figure out why. There is something going on at home that potentially we could have caught if we would ask the question, how are you? And if we ask the question, how are you, wait for a response. I literally wait for my team to respond to me. How are you? Oh, blah, blah, blah. And I let them be honest. I let them be candid. I let them be frank. I don't foster an environment where a person can't come to me and tell me exactly how they feel, when they're feeling it, and what they're feeling. And I do that for a very good reason, because there were too many years where I didn't have that ability. I wasn't asked. You had a person literally going from being a high performer to like average. You didn't ask. You didn't care. So you don't ask, you don't care. And now what? So this is why I say I think it's very important that we begin to literally peel back mental health. And it's not, on the surface. It's overall, because there are a lot of things that literally can and will affect you. And it affects your mental health. It affects how you sleep. It affects how you eat. It affects how you think. It affects how you live. I can be very totally candid and honest that I want to say probably in the last 2 years and probably in this last year, I for sure have not lived the way that I should be living. And everything finally came to a head like maybe a month ago, where for an entire week, I could not get out of I couldn't get my life together worth nothing. I was working and I'd literally be on conference calls with tears in my eyes, face red, because I had just finished crying, but I knew I needed to get on a call and talk about whatever with whomever. And there was no masking. The only thing I could do was just keep moving forward and act like nothing is going on. Face beat red, eyes bloodshot red. If you knew me, you knew I'd just finished crying. On video calls, and all because a person did not think of my mental and emotional well-being for this that they did and said and caused. And I'm tired. I'm tired of us as a whole not taking into consideration this that we do, the things that we say. Because at the end of the day, you have a responsibility for you. You are accountable for you. You know exactly how you make a person feel. You know exactly how you can influence a person's thoughts. We know this. Like you're not that emotionally detached from self. And if you are emotionally detached from self, then you're a narcissist, because that's the key to narcissism. Contrary to some of these memes that run around here and these so-called narcissistic experts that have never literally taken a psychology class in their life, the very first key to narcissism, a person that truly suffers from narcissistic personality disorder, they literally are devoid of emotion. So they do not attach emotion to anything. And even people that attempt to say that a person that has narcissistic characteristics or qualities, you cannot be narcissistic if you do have emotions. I have not met a person that truly is NPD that has emotions. What they might present to you is a fake emotion. It's not real. But I have not necessarily met anyone that is truly narcissistic, that has an emotional bone in their damn body. Have not. They are devoid. They are detached from emotions, because if they feel, you're not a narcissist, because narcissists don't feel. They get everything from you. You cannot be a narcissistic person or one that has narcissistic characteristics if there's nothing that you're really supplying them with. So, what we fail to understand is that outside of that, you're accountable for what you do and what you say. You just are. And what I find is that we're in a society where that accountability has like literally gone haywire and is lost. I'm not responsible for how you feel. Yeah, you are. If you said or you did something that caused an offense to me, you're responsible for that offense. Now, I'm responsible for how I carry it. But that actual offense, no, boo, boo. You're responsible for that. Now, whether you ever acknowledge your responsibility in that, and then in that acknowledgement, whether you take accountability for it, that is something totally different, totally separate. And I'm not responsible for that. You're responsible for that. And it's not for me to wait for you to have a measure of accountability and acceptability and acknowledgement and responsibility. I'm not doing all of that. However, I'm going to tell you exactly how that made me feel. And this is the problem that a lot of us have when it comes to mental health. We do not want to be accountable for how we make a person feel. We don't want to be accountable for how we treated a person. And we don't want to take the responsibility for how that could be directly related to the person having or going into a mental health crisis. There are some things that I literally cannot watch on TV. I realized this yesterday. I was watching something and I literally had a whole entire anxiety attack. It was a car accident and I had a whole entire anxiety attack. And part of the reason why I had that anxiety attack is because I've been in 2 very bad car accidents in the last 2 years. That technically, by the grace of God, I am still here. Truth be told, because it could have been much worse. Really could have been much worse. And when I think back to the time in which all things were occurring, it was a time of me being very depressed and me hiding the depressed state and attempting to function. And then boom, accidents. with the first car accident, when was that? 2021. Get into the accident, then get taken advantage of with a car repair shop that was supposedly owned by someone I really thought was actually a friend, and to be thoroughly taken advantage of, lied on. I mean, the things that took place with that car and this guy's complete lack of integrity. It's so strange how what he did caused me to literally revert and go back to a place where I was at in 2018. Because again, to me, it wasn't like relationally, as far as like a personal relationship, but the way how it felt to me was as if now I'm being taken advantage of by another man. That's a trigger for me. There were some things that happened to me last year that triggered a lot within me, with me being taken advantage of, that I'm not going to detail on this podcast. There were situations that took place where I literally felt, no, I didn't feel it, where I was utterly just disrespected. And it took me back to a place of a trigger. And I don't think people understand how that feels for a person that is literally striving to overcome and feeling as if you're always being kicked 15 steps back. When you hit it, and then it get thrown back, and then you hit it again, and then you get thrown back. And a lot of that, and it's like, for me, I'm always the one that's so self-aware that I take on so much of the ownership unto myself and say, Nikiya, you should have been better. You should have thought about this. You should have done this. You should have saw that. And it's like, I literally take on the burden of me not seeing something, me not catching something, me not, or I take on the burden of me accepting something. And I'm like, well, what about them? Okay, I might not have saw that, but did they have to do that? I might have accepted this, but this right here, this went too far. And I've literally taken the time now to straight up just block people. I have blocked people off my social media. I have blocked people off my phone. I have blocked, because there used to be a time, and some of my family will tell y'all this, where you pissed me off or whatever, and I felt the need to not communicate with you. I would change my number 3 times in 1 year. To totally avoid you. Like, no, I'm not doing none of this. I'm just gonna change my number. You're gonna call, and I don't know who the hell you're gonna get on that phone, but it ain't gonna be me. And I stopped doing that probably in the last 5 years. And I'm like, I'm not changing my number anymore for nobody. I don't care. I will straight up just ignore you. You will not get no nothing out of me. I don't care about anything like that. And then, there was a time when I literally would just create a whole different Facebook account. And I stopped that in 2012. I was like, I'm not doing that no more either. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I don't like you, I'm just going to block you. It's just that simple. And I've literally gone back to that. Like, I don't care. And I'm not blocking people that have a difference of opinion from me. I'm blocking people that literally are attempting to take me to a place where I feel like I have graduated and elevated from. So I feel like I don't need to go back to that place of literally cussing you out or attempting to drag you to the floor. Because I promise you, some people are literally, they're like, I don't know what day and age we are in, but it ain't this one, because you can't be serious with the bullshit that you're doing and saying. Someone even right now is be thrown off of me on Facebook right now. And I'm like, and that's why you're blocked, because the difference is, if I allow you in and I begin to see what you're doing, then I'm going to respond in such a way that's going to be so harsh that you and me might never recover from it. So I take on the attitude of block so that it then protects me, and it's also protecting you from me. It's just that simple. So, I'm going to, like I said, I was starting this off with me being candid. And a lot of what I have been experiencing over these last, I'm going to say 3 years, is heavy as far as how I've been trying to handle it within myself. And I'm no longer going to take on the ownership of the bullshit that a lot of people are doing and or saying directly to me. And what's going to begin to happen, which has already been happening, is that because I'm not accepting of it, there's just a change. I'll say it like that. There's just a change. And I'm not going to be accepting of anything that I deem is less than. And that's just how that's going to go. Don't know what else to say, because the way I felt, let's say at the end of last month, I ain't never going to feel like that again in this life. Ever. This is probably the third time that I have had that happen to me. And there can't be a fourth. Because I really do feel that we have to begin to care for people a lot more than we do. We have to begin to care about people. We have to begin to care about their emotional state. We have to begin to care about their physical state. We have to begin to care about their mental state. I take very great care of those that I love. I care about all of that within them. And I cannot tell you that I love you and I don't care about total you. So therefore, this is just fair warning for everyone that says that they love me. I'm telling y'all right now, family, friends, or y'all, then you have to begin to care about the total person. You can't just care about one little aspect. No, you have to care about the total person. You have to care about them mentally. You have to care about them spiritually, emotionally. You know what I'm saying? Even you should care about a person financially, because some of y'all are straight takers. I'm just saying, y'all ain't taking from me, because I have learned my lesson. I've learned my lesson in the giving of the wallet to just any and everybody. I don't do that anymore. That was a 5 years ago lesson. But you should care about people in that manner, and you just should. You should care about the total person. So that's what we're going to kick this off with. Caring about the total person. And one of the things that I have realized is that when I began to care about my total self, my value went up. So when I put me first and I care about my total self, therefore I have now increased my value of my own self. And so therefore, value comes in how you care for yourself. Value doesn't come from what the outside world says, unlike at an auction, right? At an auction, you know what I'm saying? The outside is bargaining, basically bidding on the value of an item, and they bid based on what they think it is worth, right? I'm not in an auction. You don't get to bid on what you think I'm worth. I set the price of me. I set my value. I set my worth. And I couldn't do that effectively until I began to recognize and take care of the total me. And that's the key for today. We got to recognize and take care of our total self. That's what we need to do. And until we begin to do that, we cannot expect someone else to come on in to our world and think to take care of and respect and honor and cherish our total self. We have to do it. And then you set the boundary for everybody else to then follow. You have to do that for your own self. You have to set the boundary of what you will allow, what you will not allow. And you have to understand that whatever it is that you do not allow, do not compromise on that. Until next week. Bye.